You saw that little blue and yellow can in the thumbnail. You already have one. It's probably sitting in your garage right now, half empty, forgotten on a shelf. Here's what I learned in Japan. That can is not what the label says it is. Used the way I'm about to show you, it can add years to everything you own. Doors, tools, locks, even your car. And the people who sell you replacements would rather you never found out. I'm going to tell you exactly how I discovered this. In a small workshop outside Kanazawa, from an old man who never bought a new tool in 40 years. And by the end, I'll give you the one method that goes back to the Edo period, before anyone sold a spray can at all, that turns a $2 habit into a lifetime of things that simply refuse to wear out. You can start it tonight, in the home you already live in, with what you already have. Let me back up, because I need you to understand how skeptical I was. For most of my life, I was exactly the kind of man these companies love. Something squeaked, I lived with it. Something rusted, I threw it out and bought another. A lock got stiff, I called a locksmith. A pair of garden shears seized up, straight into the trash. I thought that was just how things went. Things break. You replace them. That's the deal, right? That's what I was taught. That's what the advertising on my television told me every single evening. Then, a few years back, I spent a long stretch in Japan. Not the tourist Japan, not Tokyo neon and bullet trains. I mean ordinary neighborhoods, old wooden houses, rural workshops where the same family had lived and worked for 3, 4, 5 generations. And the first thing that got under my skin was how old everything was and how well everything still worked. I remember standing in a kitchen in a farmhouse near the mountains, and the woman there handed me a pair of scissors, plain kitchen scissors. She told me, through her grandson translating, that they had belonged to her mother. They cut like the day they were bought. No rust, no stiffness in the joint, smooth as anything. And I thought, that's impossible. In my house, scissors go dull and orange with rust in a couple of years and end up in a drawer I'm afraid to open. So I started paying attention, really paying attention. And what I noticed changed how I think about every object I own. These people did not buy better things than me. That was the shock. Their tools were often older, simpler, cheaper than mine. But they cared for them in a small, quiet, constant way that I had never once been taught. There's a Japanese word for it. Teire. It doesn't translate cleanly, but it means something like tending, or keeping in order, the ongoing care of a thing, so it never reaches the point of breaking, not repair. Prevention. And the heart of that prevention, I discovered, was oil. A thin film of oil, in the right places, at the right times. That's when the old man in Kanazawa entered the picture. And that's when everything I believed about that spray can turned upside down. His workshop was cluttered and warm and smelled of wood and metal. He was a carpenter, well into his 80s, and he was using hand planes that he told me his teacher had used before him. I watched him finish a cut, and then, without even thinking about it, he wiped the blade with a rag that lived in a little pot on his bench. And he set the tool down, that was it. That tiny wipe, he told me, was the reason a blade from the 1950s still had no rust on it at all. Now here's the part that grabbed me. He also had a modern can of penetrating oil on that same bench, the same stuff you have in your garage, and he used it constantly, but never for the reason the can suggests. He didn't just spray a squeak and walk away. He used it as part of a system, a philosophy of keeping things alive, and I realized I had owned that exact can for 20 years and understood maybe 5% of what it could do. So I asked him to show me. And over the following weeks, I tested every single thing, in real homes, on real objects, with my own hands. Let me walk you through what I found, because it saved me more money in 1 year than I want to admit I used to waste. The first thing he taught me was about rust, and rust is where the real theft happens. Think about it. Rust is the reason most metal things in your home die, not because they wear out from use, because they slowly corrode from moisture in the air, from humidity, from the little bit of water left on a blade or a hinge or a bolt. Iron plus water plus oxygen equals rust, and rust never sleeps. It works on your tools while you sleep, while you're at work, all winter long in a damp garage. And here's the thing almost nobody in the West understands. A film of oil breaks that chemistry. Oil sits on the metal and keeps the water and the oxygen from touching the iron. No contact, no rust. It is almost embarrassingly simple. The Japanese have known this for centuries. That penetrating spray you own does exactly this. The very name of it is a clue that got buried. It was invented in 1953 in San Diego by a chemist named Norm Larson working for a little outfit called the Rocket Chemical Company. It took him 40 tries to get the formula right, and the name literally comes from that. Water displacement, 40th attempt. Water displacement, it was built to push water off metal so metal wouldn't rust. That was the original job. That was the whole point, but somewhere along the way, we all forgot that and started treating it like a squeak fixer you grab twice a year. Therefore, the single most valuable thing I can tell you is to stop thinking of it as a repair tool and start thinking of it as armor. Let me make that concrete, the way the old carpenter made it concrete for me. Take a clean, dry rag. Spray a little oil onto the rag, not onto the object. Then wipe a thin, almost invisible film over any bare metal you want to protect. Your good scissors. Your kitchen knives, the carbon steel ones that rust if you look at them wrong. Garden tools before you put them away for winter. The metal parts of your lawnmower. Hand tools in the garage. Hinges on an outdoor gate. Do this once at the start of a damp season, and that metal will not rust. It's not magic. It's chemistry that older cultures respected and we forgot. I did this with a set of old chisels I'd inherited from my father, the ones I'd let go orange and pitted out of pure neglect. I cleaned them up, wiped them with that thin oil film and put them away. A full year later, in a damp basement, not a speck of new rust. My father's tools. That I nearly threw away. That hit me somewhere deep. But protection was only the beginning, because the old man showed me the oil could also bring dead things back to life, and that led me to the trick that made me genuinely angry at how much money I'd wasted. Have you ever had a lock that got so stiff you could barely turn the key? Or a padlock that seized up entirely and you just cut it off? Or a door handle that ground and stuck? I used to call people for that. I used to replace the whole lock. A locksmith visit where I live runs you somewhere between $75 and $150 just to show up. And most of the time, the lock isn't broken at all. It's dry, or it's got a fine grit inside, or a whisper of rust is binding the pins. The old man took a padlock that hadn't opened in years, a rusted, hopeless thing, and gave it one short spray into the keyhole. He waited. He worked the key back and forth, gently, patiently, and it opened, a lock I would have thrown in the bin. He explained that the oil creeps into places your fingers can never reach. It loosens the rust bond, it carries away the grit, and it leaves everything gliding. The same trick works on stiff window latches, sticky sliding doors, frozen bolts, seized bicycle chains, garden shears that won't open, and squealing hinges that you've listened to for years. Therefore, here's a number that stuck with me. I sat down one evening and added up everything in the previous few years that I had replaced or paid someone to fix, when a $2 spray and 10 minutes of patience would have solved it. A padlock, a set of pruning shears, a sticking bathroom lock, a tool I'd let rust to death. It came to well over $400. $400 out of my pocket for problems that were never really problems. That's when I stopped seeing this as a garage product and started seeing it as something that had been quietly kept from me my whole life. And after a lifetime of throwing things away, that quiet little jar on my own workbench has changed something in me I didn't expect. If you want to go deeper into everything I uncovered across my time in Japan, the methods, the philosophy, the specific practices that almost disappeared from the world, I put it all into a series of books: Japanese Roots, Deep Japanese, and the Full System. Each one builds on the last, and together they cover a way of living with objects that the modern world quietly buried. You'll find them mentioned in the description below. If this video resonated with you, those books will take you the rest of the way. But let me bring you back to the workshop, because the old man had more to show me, and the next lesson is where the real system begins to take shape. And that word, quietly, is where this story turns, because I started to ask a question I couldn't shake. If this is so simple, so cheap, so effective, why did nobody ever teach me? Why does every instinct I have say throw it out and buy a new one? Here's what I came to understand, and I want you to sit with it. There is an entire economy built on your things breaking. The man who sells you a new lawnmower does not profit from your old one lasting 30 years. The dealer who sells you a new car does not want you protecting your undercarriage from rust so it runs for 2 decades. The store that sells you a fresh set of tools every few years is not going to run a commercial teaching you to wipe them with oil so you never come back. It isn't a conspiracy in a dark room. It's simpler and colder than that. Nobody makes money teaching you to keep what you already own, so the knowledge just quietly disappeared. It fell out of the manuals. It fell out of the ads. It fell out of what fathers taught sons. But it did not disappear in Japan, and I think I know why. There's a concept there so deep it's almost in the bones of the culture. Matanai. It's the feeling of regret, almost pain, at seeing something useful wasted. A good thing thrown away before its time. Japanese children grow up hearing it. Don't waste that. It's matanai. And that single feeling, multiplied across a whole society, produces people who oil their tools, mend their clothes, repair their bowls with gold, and hand down scissors that still cut like new after 50 years. Now, I know exactly what some of you are thinking right now, because I thought it too. You're thinking, that's lovely for a carpenter in an old workshop in Japan, but I live in an ordinary house on an ordinary street, and I'm not about to move to the mountains or buy special equipment. I hear you. So let me stop the story for a moment and give you something you can do this week. In the home you're sitting in right now, with nothing but that can you already own. This next part is built exactly for you, the person who thinks this doesn't apply to your life. It applies more than you know. Walk through your house with me. Start at your front door. That hinge that groans every time it opens, the one you've stopped even hearing? A short spray. Work it back and forth a few times. Wipe the drip. Silent for a year. Now the door lock and the key. A tiny bit into the mechanism, work the key gently. It'll turn like butter, and it'll keep the winter damp from seizing it. Move to your windows. Sliding windows and screen doors run on tracks that fill with grime and stiffen. Clean the track, then a light film, and they'll glide with one finger. Go to the kitchen. Those cabinet hinges and drawer slides that stick and squeak, a dab on each. Take your good knives and scissors, wipe that thin protective film I told you about, and put them away rust-proof. Go to the bathroom, where humidity destroys metal fastest of all. Wipe the metal fittings, the hinges, the runner on the shower door. Go to the garage or the shed. Every bare metal tool, every blade, every bolt, a thin wipe of oil before the cold season. Then your bicycle chain, your wheelbarrow, your ladder hinges, the lawnmower deck. Not one of those needs a special product. Not one needs a trip to Japan. Not one needs more than a rag, a can, and about half an hour of your Saturday. And when you're done, you will have quietly added years of life to a whole house full of things and spent almost nothing. That's the whole point. That's what they stopped telling us. But I promised you a secret finale, and this is the one I've been holding, because it's older than any spray can, and it's better than the spray can, and it's the thing that ties this whole story together. Remember that little pot on the old carpenter's bench, the one his rag lived in? I asked him about it near the end of my time there, and what he told me sent me digging into Japanese history for weeks. That pot has a name. It's called an aburatsubo, an oil pot, and Japanese woodworkers have kept one on the bench for centuries. Inside is a wad of cotton or cloth soaked not in modern spray, but in camellia oil, tsubaki oil, pressed from the seeds of the camellia flower. And every time a craftsman finishes a cut, he gives his blade the lightest wipe across that oiled cloth before setting it down. every single time. It takes 1 second. And it is the reason plane blades and chisels from 100 years ago come out of a toolbox today with no rust and a mirror edge. This goes back a very long way. Camellia oil was protecting steel in Japan during the Edo period, the era from 1603 to 1867, when the country was largely closed off and people had to make everything they owned last. It was used on the finest swords to keep them from rusting. Samurai swords, the ones meant to last generations, were wiped with it. Craftsmen used it on their tools. Women used it on their hair and their skin, because it's gentle and pure. It's food safe, which is why, to this day, it's the traditional choice for protecting Japanese kitchen knives, the high-carbon steel ones that would rust overnight otherwise. Here is why this matters to you, and here is the finale, the thing you can do this weekend. It isn't really about which oil you buy, it's about the habit the oil pot creates. The modern world sold us the idea that you fix a thing once it's broken. The Aburatsubo teaches the opposite. You touch the thing with oil constantly, in tiny amounts, so it never gets the chance to break. 1 second per use. That's the whole secret that outlasted an empire. So do this. Take a small jar with a lid, any jar. Put a folded cloth or a wad of cotton inside. Soak it, not dripping, just soaked with oil. For your kitchen knives, use a food-safe oil, and camellia oil is easy to find online for a few dollars and lasts for years. But even a light mineral oil works. For your garage tools, your bench, your garden shed, keep a second jar with your penetrating oil or a simple machine oil on the cloth. Then build the 1 second habit. Knife goes back in the block, wipe it on the cloth first. Chisel goes back in the drawer, wipe it first. Shears go back on the hook, wipe them first. Saw, plane, pliers, garden trowel, 1 wipe every time. Do that, and you will never buy those tools again. Not because they're expensive tools, because they will outlive you and get handed to someone who loves you. That's what the old man in Kanazawa was really showing me. He wasn't saving money, though he was. He was refusing to let good things die before their time. He was living motenai with a rag and a pot of oil. Because here's what I finally understood. Every rusted tool I ever threw out, every lock I replaced, every squeaky thing I gave up on, was a small surrender. A little vote for a world where nothing lasts and you always pay again. And a jar of oil and a 1 second habit is a vote for the opposite. For keeping what's yours, for being the kind of person who takes care of things, instead of the kind who's taught to keep buying them. I stood in that farmhouse kitchen months ago, holding a pair of scissors older than me that cut like new, and I felt something close to grief for all the years I didn't know. Somebody decided we didn't need to know this, and they were wrong. So let me ask you something, and I really do want you to answer, because I read every one of these. Go find the oldest tool in your house right now, the one you almost threw away, the chisel from your father, the shears from your mother's garden, the knife that came from someone who's gone. Tell me in the comments what it is and whether you're going to save it. Just write it down and leave it below. I want to know that thing is going to make it. And if some part of you has always suspected that the simplest, oldest answers were pushed aside so somebody else could keep selling you the expensive ones, then you belong here. Subscribe and stand with the rest of us who are quietly taking this knowledge back, one forgotten method at a time. Because next I'm going to show you the Japanese kitchen trick that keeps rice fresh for months without a single preservative, a method from a cold northern region that families guarded for generations, and once you see it, you'll never store food the same way again. Keep what's yours, oil the hinge, wipe the blade, and I'll see you in the next one. I'm so glad you stayed to the very end. Here's the thing. This video was just the overview. Inside the Japanese Ways circle, I pick up exactly where we stopped, walking you through the complete teire system. And if something isn't clear, you ask me directly, and I answer you myself. You won't be doing this alone. So many curious learners are already in there with me. Just point your phone at the code. Cancel anytime.